At an age when most people are still figuring out whether oat milk is a lifestyle choice or a phase, Karoline Leavitt walked into the White House briefing room and rewrote the rulebook. At 27, she became the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history, an appointment that felt less like a promotion and more like a cultural event. Cameras clicked, eyebrows lifted, Twitter combusted, and somewhere in America, a Gen Z intern whispered, "So, we can do this now?" Serving under Donald Trump during his second administration beginning in January 2025, Leavitt didn't arrive quietly. She arrived with posture, pace, and a microphone grip that suggested she planned to use it. Her ascent wasn't accidental, and it wasn't overnight. It was the product of ambition, discipline, and a talent for messaging sharp enough to cut through a room full of veteran reporters, politely, of course. From small-town roots to national stage, Leavitt's story begins far from the marble corridors of Washington. Raised in Atkinson, New Hampshire, she grew up in a household where work came before words and results mattered more than excuses. Her parents ran a small business, which meant lessons and responsibility arrived early, along with the understanding that nothing is free, including success. She attended Central Catholic High School in Massachusetts and later studied politics and communications at St. Anselm College. Friends and professors remember her not as someone who liked politics, but as someone who inhabited it. She argued policy the way athletes run drills, repeatedly, intensely, and with purpose. If there was a debate, she was in it. If there was a microphone, she found it. Entering the lion's den early. While many graduates were polishing Ursums, Leavitt was already inside the West Wing. During Trump's first administration, she worked as a communications assistant, learning the machinery of power from the inside. It was the political equivalent of learning to swim by jumping into open water, and she didn't just stay afloat, she started steering. In 2022, she took a bold step that surprised even allies, running for Congress in New Hampshire's 1st congressional district. She didn't win the primary, but she won something else: visibility. Pundits took notice. Opponents sharpened their critiques. Supporters doubled down. The consensus was clear. This was not a cameo appearance in politics. This was a long-term role, a second Trump era, and a historic appointment. January 2025 didn't just mark the return of Donald Trump to the Oval Office, it signaled a reset of political energy in Washington. For Karoline Leavitt, it was the defining moment that vaulted her from rising figure to record breaker. When her appointment as the 36th White House press secretary was announced, historians quietly reached for the eraser. At just 27 years old, she became the youngest person ever to hold the position. No footnotes, no qualifiers, just history. Her debut press conference made one thing immediately clear: this wasn't a trial run. It was a statement of intent. Calm without being stiff, confident without sounding rehearsed, Leavitt stood at the podium like she had been waiting for it her entire career. Then came the announcement that truly rattled the room, opening the door for independent journalists and digital creators to apply for White House press credentials. In one move, she challenged decades of tradition and sent a message that landed far beyond the briefing room. The media ecosystem was changing, and nostalgia was no longer in charge. Style at the podium. The role of press secretary is often described as thankless, relentless, and mildly terrifying, and that's on a good day. Every briefing is a verbal obstacle course filled with loaded questions, flashing cameras, and reporters hoping for a misstep. Karoline Leavitt doesn't survive this environment. She controls it. Her communication style blends old-school discipline with modern speed. Answers are tight, pivots are precise, and when a question is framed more like a trap than an inquiry, she dismantles it piece by piece, politely but thoroughly. Critics label her approach combative. Supporters see clarity and backbone. The truth is simpler: she's prepared. There's also something intangible happening when she steps into the room. The tempo changes. Conversations sharpen. Even those who disagree with her positions lean forward, because she delivers responses with authority rather than apology. Whether she's defending policy or pushing back against perceived bias, she speaks like someone who expects the room to keep up. Love, power, and an unconventional match. While Leavitt commands headlines for her professional rise, her personal life has drawn just as much fascination. Her relationship with real estate developer Nicholas Riccio, significantly older, financially established, and firmly outside the usual political partner mold, became instant internet fuel. Predictably, commentary followed. Speculation multiplied. Think pieces bloomed overnight. Leavitt responded with the most effective strategy possible: indifference. The couple married in early 2024 in a private ceremony that offered no dramatic photo ops and zero explanations. Later that year, they welcomed their first child, shifting the narrative from gossip to reality. In a culture obsessed with optics and approval, Leavitt made a different choice, living her life without consulting the comments section. Living adjacent to the billionaire lane. Karoline Leavitt doesn't pretend her lifestyle is ordinary, and she doesn't need to. Her professional orbit places her alongside donors, power brokers, and elite networks where private flights are scheduling tools, not status symbols. Fundraisers happen in Palm Beach. Meetings overlap with Aspen weekends. Brunch occasionally requires security clearance. Her fashion reflects the same discipline she brings to politics. Tailored suits, couture details, and footwear that communicate seriousness before she says a word. Designers change, but the aesthetic doesn't. Structured, intentional, and commanding. Stylists may assist, but the message is hers. She dresses like someone who expects authority to be recognized, and rarely has to ask for it. The social media advantage. In an era where many politicians treat social media like a necessary inconvenience, Leavitt treats it like infrastructure. She understands how narratives form online and how quickly silence becomes surrender. Instagram, X, behind-the-scenes clips, these aren't accessories to her role. They're extensions of it. Press briefings become clipped, shared, debated within minutes. Outfits trend. One-liners circulate. Supporters amplify. Critics react. The cycle feeds itself, and Leavitt remains at the center of it, not chasing virality, but controlling tone. This digital fluency resonates strongly with younger audiences and frustrates opponents who prefer slower, safer messaging. In modern politics, speed matters. Leavitt moves fast, polarizing by design, unbothered by noise. Leavitt is not universally loved, and she doesn't seem remotely interested in being so. Late-night shows mock her. Editorials dissect her tone. Activists protest her positions. She responds the same way every time, with preparation. When accused of arrogance, she counters with facts. When labeled confrontational, she reframes it as conviction. One viral moment summed it up perfectly. I wasn't hired to be liked. I was hired to deliver facts. Somewhere, a public relations textbook quietly applauded. Power behind the scenes. What the cameras don't always capture is Leavitt's growing influence inside the administration. She's increasingly involved in strategy discussions, messaging frameworks, and long-term planning. Advisors reportedly value her instincts, not just for what to say, but when to say it. Whispers about her future circulate constantly. Campaign leadership? A cabinet role? A run of her own someday? Nothing is confirmed, and she isn't saying, but the trajectory is unmistakable. A comet, not a cameo. Love her or loathe her, Karoline Leavitt is impossible to ignore. She represents a new kind of political figure, young, media-savvy, unapologetic, and strategically bold. Her rise isn't just about age or aesthetics. It's about timing, skill, and a willingness to step into rooms where doubt waits eagerly. If this is the opening chapter of her career, the rest of the book is going to be loud, debated, and widely read. Politics has always loved a disruptor. And right now, Leavitt isn't just part of the story, she's driving the headline. Whether history remembers her as a transitional figure or a transformative one remains to be seen. But one thing is already certain. She didn't come to whisper. She came to speak, and the world, willingly or not, is listening. She didn't come to whisper. She came to shake the room, and her story is still being written. Whether you admire her confidence or question her impact, one thing's clear. Karoline Leavitt is changing the way power looks, sounds, and moves in modern politics. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more videos that break down the people shaping our world, like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.